Good evening, everyone. I'll call the meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone to the July 23rd regular board meeting. And I'd like to welcome everybody here, and we'll begin with our pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Glenn, we'd like to move to adopt our agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda. I'll second.
It's been motion and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, next we'll need a motion to adopt our consent agenda.
Make a motion to adopt the consent agenda. I'll second.
We have a motion and second. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay, presentation, the 2025-2026 technology plan of work.
Oh, hello. Thanks for having me.
I would like to say I looked at earlier today, a presentational document, very, very nice. So,
Talking about all.
Can you hear him okay?
Yeah.
I can
little bit.
turn that off.
No,
Okay.
No, you cannot. I'll leave the lip.
So is
I can be a little
Yeah.
loud.
There you go. There you go. That's good.
I'm making eye contact. Thanks, guys. It's always, I do enjoy coming in and looking at it. If for no other reason too, it forces me to reflect on the year that we had and what we got planned and put it in writing. I always like to start these meetings, highlighting my team. Because we would not get what we do done without their help. And so this will be Jared, Janine and Xavier. They've been with us for a couple of years now, which is phenomenal. I would say we're not fully staffed this year. We're not gonna be fully staffed again next year, which is what it is. We're all in the situation, but they've all stepped up and made sure that we're keeping the main systems up and running for the rest of the team.
The unfulfilled spot, what is that role?
So it is a technician, so when we switched to one-to-one devices, we knew we would need some extra support because we effectively tripled the number of devices that we've had. And so historically, we've always had one or two kind of middle of the road technician positions. And so when we were looking at a third, what we decided to shift the philosophy to a tiered system, right? So where we have entry position, kind of a middle position and a high level position. Cost was neutral because you're effectively, shifting that middle kind of zone into that. So it worked out to be the same cost. And it gave some growth. So our, help desk person could have an opportunity should our technician move on or move up and kind of build that in. And which did happen. So Jared was hired as our technician. And then when our systems administrator departed, he ended up applying for that and he was hired in that role. Our challenge, of course, is that we didn't then, because of budget constraints, we didn't immediately backfill that technician position. So we've kind of been holding pattern around that. We've done some stop gaps, but that's effectively why we have the kind of a three-tier
So everybody's
system.
cross-trained.
Yeah, everybody does. I mean, everybody does a little bit. Kind of my expectations with when I had all three of them is everybody should be supporting the person who is in the next lower. And that person, so like the help desk, I have an expectation that at least 10% of his week should be spent specifically on self reading the manual. Like it's embedded, but read the manuals, go online and research the stuff that we're working on. That takes a lot of time, especially in IT. And then also that again, around 10% of their work time should be spent with the next person. So Xavier would spend, 4 hours a week with Jared in the field with the work that Jared was doing as a technician. And then when our sysadmin was there, the same role would happen for Jared when he was in the technician role, that he would kind of work with that to try to build that, build experience, build cross-training, just supporting each other. I'll be honest too, it's nice to have somebody, like we are siloed in a lot of what we do. I can't even remember what it was, but I was working on a project last week. And like I was moving forward with it and I said it out loud to Jared, because he is my partner in a lot of stuff. And he's like, oh, did you look at blah? And it wasn't exactly that, but that was like, oh my gosh, I didn't think about that. And you go off and you fix it. And so having those knowledge partners amongst our team was super helpful.
That's great.
But yeah, my team's great. Another one I like to do once a year, so we've had our ticket system in place since 2011. Took us a few years to get staff used to submitting a ticket, which is effectively you just email help them or try to keep the bar really low on it. It goes into a web database. And you can see, like, kind of historically, blue is the number of tickets that come in, red is the number of tickets that we actually actively close or resolve. There's ups and downs over the year. On this last year, 2024 to 25, there's a bigger gap between the number of requests we got and the number of requests that we closed. I'm gonna say one of the bigger issue I'm gonna address later is this is our first year of doing in-house Chromebook repairs. And so those aren't necessarily Chromebook tickets that we didn't close. I haven't looked at that granularity, but just in general, our load, our staffing, that consumed more and more of our time, so.
So we're already a team of 3 or full-time active folks. You're managing 36
Requests.
issues.
Technically, that is 2 people with me supporting them. So our Janine, who is our our student information systems coordinator. Her role is kind of different, so she's a bit of an outlier in our team. Her focus silo is around Skyward, making sure we're compliant and all of that, making sure the data is at, that kind of thing. So she occasionally will get support requests directed towards her. But she is effectively, her percentage of that is very minor. We'll also have a couple of tickets too that, having the advantage of having Rebecca Kratzig and Cynthia Richardson as our TOSAs, who are supporting our teachers in using technology to impact our instruction. We do take, there's a percentage of our support requests that come in that we pass along to that, because it's not a problem as much as understanding. And that's been super helpful as well. Just information, I thought this was an interesting thing. So this is kind of a breakdown. We categorize every ticket that comes in. We started this maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I haven't done a reflection over multiple years. And honestly, for the most part, this stays pretty good slice of the pie. And this isn't weighted by the amount of work effort needed to it. It is just what the category is. So there's no this isn't a reflection of how much time we spent on any project, just the number of requests that comes in. So you see the largest chunk is centered around our speed devices that we spent. And I'll go more into that later.
And then the next one is spam and junk mail.
Ironically enough, yes, we get a lot of spam and junk mail. So, and granted, like I thought, I'm not gonna put it on this slide, but there is every one of those, first we gotta identify, is it really spam? Just because we don't recognize the email address, it could very easily be a parent. So even if it's 5 minutes, it's 556 5 minutes over the
Yeah.
course of a year, right? And that's trivial, but not trivial.
Do you guys do a reward system where you send out a funny spam to see if people can recognize the spam versus a real spam?
We have not, and I've kicked that around. There's a couple of organizations over the years that I've chatted with and considered. There's some, I can't think of any of their names off the top, but yeah, there are systems you can purchase that becomes their role as they reach out. What we try to do right now is that, because we'll get requests from stuff, and people are pretty good now about saying, hey, this looks kind of suspicious, and they'll forward it on to us, and we'll read it. And then will you respond to the person as well? But a lot of times we'll send it out globally and say, okay, hey, here's an example. So we don't try to I'm gonna say to bait anybody and see if they get caught, but we try to just continue to raise awareness around that. Because it's just part of doing business, and not all of it gets filtered. I have 2 spam filters,
Yeah,
and stuff still comes.
We used to have fishing simulations,
Right.
and those who didn't fish the simulation, those are the ones that gotta go to class. So,
yeah.
that what you
That's
had.
what I was saying, yeah, because at the beginning of getting a device, you would be trained on, this is what fishing looks like. And then you're given a device and now be prepared.
Right.
And now, right, and then it happens all the time, and all of a sudden it's like, "Woo, congratulations, you
Yeah,
passed, like.
If you fish it,
If
if
you
not,
fished and you didn't get caught, then it's like this big thing comes up on your. So it's kind of fun.
No, they are. I really like what I've seen, and I've seen different organizations in Whatcom County have used stuff like that.
Yeah,
With some success and some challenges, and like so many other things, at the end of the day, there's some dollars involved and time involved, and so, it's waiting what's gonna give us the biggest return. So far, we have not had very much. Most of our staff have reached out once at a point early enough to where things look suspicious.
yeah, I just see the 556 or 15% being spent on that. So how, if you could catch it or train up front before, and if we had to spend a little bit more money up front to do some navigation, what that would just, if we could maybe have some conversation about that, what that would look like if everybody had a device and that conversation.
Right.
Maybe if we could drop that number, just to lessen your load. That's all I was thinking about.
Yeah, I wanna,
Yeah.
let me clarify on that. So that spam is actually spam that we are getting directed to our ticket system. So it's random emails
Oh.
so there is
Directly to you,
directly to our ticketing system.
not to everybody's
Not
devices.
as a global kind of thing, but they're not
Understood.
yes,
Okay.
that's important.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
I was
not
gonna
our
say,
staff
wow.
getting that. Now, I will, since we're on the topic of spam though, right, so
Yeah,
I have an initial filter, all of our email goes through. 90% of the email that filter receives gets filtered. Then
That's
that
great.
passes the rest, that 10% off to Google, which then Google will tag stuff as spam or not spam and deliver it to the user.
Sure.
But most, 90% is pretty significant. And so,
Yeah.
and it's just the same junk over. Hey, our last week, we had fun. So, and I'm sure Jay will probably talk about it some during his meeting, because I'm gonna, again, like, I talk about my team, partnering with Jay has been phenomenal. Like, he is always supportive. We worked together today, working on campus. And when I say we, Jay and Noel were up on the lift. I was down below with my laptop watching.
Wow.
But yeah, so it's been super helpful. So our, as you know, we have a generator that is part of our previous, the 2021 to 2024 left. We determined that we needed a generator to support district-wide operations. That was approved. It was in the plans. We got delayed because availability and cost. We've moved forward with it. We've already written the PO. It's been approved, and the unit is in process, but there's still, a delivery time. So, that will be, right now, we're anticipating a December 25 roll. Which would have made this almost a non-issue for keeping data running elsewhere. We could have repurposed. So we did keep things running as best we were able. Started off with our tractor, which I asked Jay about how old it was, and so he
I
said-
ran that high school.
So, yes. So it is-
Tractor.
It is old, it is July. Jay shared with me that I had him generating power for our district on the coldest day of this year and the hottest day of this year. So it'll be nice to get, everything's old though, so the electrical was also from the fuse that blew was from 1992.
That's when I graduated.
You
I know.
bought that tractor.
And so you can't get it. It is not available anywhere. Jay was able to find somebody who buys up, like old shops and stuff and then resells all the things. He had 3 new in a box on a shelf. Figured he'd never sell them. I mean, how we found them, it was totally locked. Got those, had them overnighted, put it in, and we're back up and running and we have 2 spins. So,
So just to throw it out there, from the marketing PR standpoint, that would be a fun thing to put a reel on our social media. Specifically about how maintenance and IT are working together for improvements on this is where our dollars are going.
Yeah.
To make things work. And then also a little bit of a comedic twist on trying to find something from 1980 to make things work.
Right.
Yeah,
So I love that idea and I have.
I love
it.
it. yeah, no, it'd be great.
and is this a generator that we were trying to get for our bond? Or no?
Not for the bond.
No.
Okay,
This was already approved with.
this was the other one, okay, okay,
We did a nice job, Jay.
yeah,
The 2 times.
Yes,
We went back to both. Kurt and I, he goes, "Okay, what I find interesting is I replaced the 1992 fuse with the in the box new 1980 something fuses from this year, 1995 or something like that. They were older than the ones.
who does this?
Jay's a good man, and he's,
Honestly,
you know, talk about MacGyver, improvise, yeah, I mean, yeah, they're always looking for a solution.
Yeah.
You know, well, let's
Of course,
figure out a way to
everybody-
fix it, yeah.
especially when we're trying to stay within a budget. Right? Before going out and spending big dollars,
He's
Yeah, no, it is.
like on a farm, and like you said,
yeah, I feel like that came out of my dad's garage.
The alternative here would be replacing that transformer, which would have significant lead time and expense.
And this is one of the things where I don't see the data on how many people are actually engaging in school board meeting and seeing this firsthand. Is there another avenue we can get this information out to them? It's worth knowing.
I'll work with Lisa and.
Yeah. That'd be a really good,
Okay, so I'm gonna kind of run through some of the projects, and some of this is gonna be stuff you guys are already aware of. So another part of the previous levy, we identified, in classrooms, kind of our multimedia and, audiovisual was in need. And so under the 21-24 levy, we identified the middle school and IREB as the most needing. And so we've already made progress. Our last step is getting, audio. So the teachers have, that little smaller square is a pendant that the teachers will wear. And, we went to a conference a year or 2 ago and they had those and it was clear and it would really work well. So we reached out to the vendor, pricing was fine. And with this setup, it comes with that for the teacher and then the actual mini microphone then, so that the teachers can hand it to a kid. So that the kid can engage, or if you have some other presenter in the room or second person, so every room has 2 microphones. And so we'll have this completely rolled out, everything is either on-site or on order or installed. So the speakers are installed, the microphones are on order. And so we're expecting to have this up and running for middle school and IREB start of fall. For MP3, MHS, IREA, they had systems in place when they were new, but through FCC licensing and wear and tear, it's not a longer an even platform. So we identified we wanted to make that happen during the next levy cycle we're in. So they are slotted for that. Currently, just from a budgeting standpoint, it's gonna be later in that levy. So right now, we're looking at like the summer of 2027.
I like the microphones, because not everybody likes to get up in front of a classroom and speak. So being able to hand a microphone around and have the voice amplified is really nice.
Teachers appreciate it.
Yeah,
And like,
that's
you know,
really nice.
because they don't have to raise their voice and
Yeah.
sing their own vocal.
So
can
they
just
get to
talk
wear the
about
box around their neck, but yet pass around the microphone to talk, yeah.
And no concerns with like post 1973 building where you don't have old growth wood and walls are a little thinner. You know, is it any kind of distraction from room to room? Is there any complaints about that?
We haven't had it, so, well. I'm gonna mix my answer on that. So with the systems we had from the new buildings, we didn't have any complaints. And we rolled two of these systems out at the middle school and none of their neighbors had complaints.
Great.
So it has a volume too, so if it starts to get, it will crank up quite loud. And so it's nice too, 'cause then we can we'll tie in our, TV/PC that goes in every room into it. We put 4 speakers in the ceiling. Because that way we can, do a directional sound and kind of section out the room in 4 quadrants. So we're getting a nice even platform across it.
It's also good for children, because they can hear wherever they're, you don't have to raise your voice and critique. It's good.
Security cameras, we are gonna be working on, again, part of finishing off the previous levy, we have the security cameras to put 5 locations up at FD3. So we're working on that this summer. We've got all the infrastructure in place, and so that's what Jay's team and I will be partnering on to get those up. Right, kind of looking at things that we started from the 25 to 28 levy, doing in that same classroom technology. We weren't planning on doing TVs and multimedia in those classrooms until much later in the levy. Again, just because of how the levy sliced out budget wise. Early on this year, it just became untenable with the systems that we had in place. Our projectors are the ones that the high school and IREA, they're a decade old plus. They're actually older because they were bought before construction even started. The minute the contract was dry, the equipment was bought, put in storage, put in play, run for 10 years. It's well outside their usable lifespan. We were trying to keep eking in one more year, but it was not so. So kind of did some shuffling around and pushed some projects off for later, doing a lot of projects where I'm gonna do them in the summer, but we're gonna stall it just enough, we'll tip over into the next year's budget and just being kind of creative with how we fund things and move it. But yeah, we've got those in place. So as of now, every classroom in the district has that TV.
I think Michelle had asked previously, what would happen to the TVs that were pretty new, that were in classrooms, that were being upgraded. And we said we were kind of gonna hold on to those and then keep them for other classrooms. Is that still the plan?
Yeah, we've had, I'm trying to count in my head. I want to say we have, prior to doing this adoption, we had max a dozen TVs district wide, and a lot of them were mounted on like there's a quad TVs that are in the commons of the high school.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Right, yeah.
That were bigger. Oh, yeah.
I think the concern was if we move to action rather quickly on a new middle school.
Yeah.
We had put all the new.
Yeah, oh, that was,
updated
yeah,
stuff.
right.
Turf those,
We
we
would
did that before.
yeah.
But that's been a different conversation.
No, but I want you guys to know as well, that every piece I buy is with the intention of it being taken with and carried forward.
Yeah.
Assuming the age of the equipment
Right,
is worth the effort.
yeah.
Do we ever
things change.
do surplus cells and things like that, like some of the universities do?
We do, it's,
Just like our buses.
we do,
It's actually something that hadn't been done regularly, and so Joe and Jay do a really nice job of having things surplus and, yeah.
Sure.
You actually approve those periodically and make them through because we have to
On our consent agenda.
I just don't see them being like like you can go into a room at UW or
You would, it's all website
Yeah, okay.
stuff.
publicsurplus.com, this will get out to, at which we picked up, because I used to shop on Western, use those, and probably still does, so I will pick up them, yeah. I'll be honest too, by the time we're done with stuff, there is very little value and life in the things that when we're done with a Chromebook, It's because Google has determined they're done with it, and so they're limited interest. We did surplus 2 or 3 years ago. When we did the one-to-one, we did a pretty large surplus of all of our old Chromebooks and iPads that were obsolete at that point. And we had some takers, but a lot of it ended up getting recycled.
I'm just wondering if that's more of a community
So,
focused surplus program once a year or something like that. I think you might get more traction than the big .com folks that they're looking for.
true, yeah. And we can
Someone
look at
might
that.
use me a 75-inch TV that's 10 years old because they don't care. Their children are playing video games on it. Yeah.
Again, other projects we worked on this year, so, working with Daniel and James, I wanna say it was the 2023-24 budget. We allocated extra money to address some of our aging, security cameras that were also part of construction. So we purchased the cameras, got about half of them installed that summer of 2024. We're working now to finish off the last of them. Each one, so we were up, that was one of the ones we were working on today. Every location we put a camera up, I'm a big fan of multi-camera things because the cost is nice and you get 4 cameras, so this is a single location that we can get 180-degree view of.
I'm all about upgrading our security.
And visibility, right, so.
Yeah.
I touched on earlier, but like, from how Chromebook repairs have been a big time consuming projects, we have of our Chromebooks, we have roughly a 2,200 unit fleet of Chromebooks. Like we're up there now. 520 of them were sent to us for some form of repair. Repairs, one, determining the repair, documenting it, making the repairs. A lot of times what we're doing is that, motherboard repairs have been starting to be our bigger issue, and what's happening is that because the power, it'll stop powering. So the USB port will no longer power them, no longer accept the charge. It's not clear if it's because it's damaged the motherboard or if it's just damaged the USB port, but a motherboard replacement is over $200 if you can get it. Not worth it on a now pushing 6-year-old Chromebook, so that we use those for parts. So then we're spending time to tear down to get the screen, put the screen on a different device. But overall, it's less of a net loss. Moving forward with that too, I said somewhere there, like I project that we're gonna lose, and for that specific case, we're probably gonna lose about 2 devices, 3 devices every week. So.
Is there a different device that we have been starting to think about we might want to use?
It's not necessarily, so that there's age of stuff, right? Technology does not last long just from a functional standpoint. Manufacturers do not have interest in making technology that lasts long because there's always the next thing. So from an equipment standpoint, all of these devices have reached their usable lifespan at this point. And so the timing for us is finding that happy spot, and it's just like, everybody's car has a usable lifespan.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You can keep repairing it. There's a point where the repair exceeds the value versus new, and it's
Yeah.
finding that happy spot, and you don't want your car to all of a sudden break down right at this moment when you need it. And now you're like, do I go buy a new car? I don't have a car. It becomes a crisis, right? And so it's finding that sweet spot of where I'm gonna replace it here, even though it still works, and there might even be some residual value there.
Great.
But
We
it's,
have all these cars, we have no trade-in value right now.
which is where we're at,
Right.
and we do not have capacity to buy a new car right now either, right? And
Right.
so it's aligning all these things to get us to the point. My goal with all this is that if we can get one more year out of these devices, then we're gonna be what I call in the middle of the levy, right? Because this is our biggest purchase in the levy, though. The student and staff devices accounts for almost, I forget what I said, but it's almost half the levy.
Yeah.
So if we can get to the middle of the levy, that's kind of rough, because then once we're, you know, when we request, we reach out to our voters and for the next cycle of devices, we'll be purchasing in that middle of the levy. The devices will have some residual value, and then we'll just keep in that cycle of every 4 to 5 years. We surplus, we rebuy, we might keep some of them that are still good as spares, and it'll help reduce our footprint a little bit as well. But what happened to us, which was, and I'll go back, that was our original plan, was to do it that way, but what happened is, we didn't even have the levy in place yet, and we bought the devices, we had to lease it. Which then made the whole thing, so we're trying to get things lined back up into that.
But we could say, even if they're end of life or whatever, they could be used in the loaner program. As I mentioned before, seeing students with 4 or 5 Chromebooks in their backpack, it'd be great if
Yep.
we had some less desirable end of life devices to use with our loaners.
Which we do now, we have our devices that we bought back in, you know, the teens, that we've been interspersing. And so we do, yeah, and this is part of our plan, we're also, you know, targeting small batches where we can get longevity out of the devices. And reutilize those as loaner / repair devices. We're doing a Windows 11 update.
Yay.
I think this is my last, projects we're working on, so we met with IRE, with grade level leaders back in early spring. Essentially to discuss, you know, is a take-home model still the right model? What are the pros, what are the cons, what are the costs? Essentially, the takeaway from all of that is that we decided that for this year, we're going to switch our TK through second grade students. They're no longer going to be assigned a device to take home. So those devices will stay on campus, so we bought a bunch of carts to do those. So we collected all of our iPads at the end of this school year. We are spending our time now cleaning them and see how well the cases go through the dishwasher without the iPad. And see if that helps speed up our process, but that is another big project we have this summer. We'll load those up. For efficiency's sake, that what we are doing is we're going to actually, so with the thought that we're gonna lose 2 or 3 devices a year are gonna become irreparable, we opted then, we're gonna buy, or we bought brand new Chromebooks for second grade, because those are gonna stay on site. And so when we cycle through the next replacement cycle, which I am hoping will be next summer, we will not replace those machines, so they'll have a slightly longer, they'll get a 5 or a 6 year instead of a 4 or 5 year, and then move back in when we replace them. I think it's in 2030 or 2031 into the next. So things like that where we can target areas that have a better success expectation, and then reutilize the stuff that we've heard about.
I'm very excited to see that.
Me too.
No, we're gonna, it's a pilot like everything else, and we're gonna see, you know. Then we'll see, from there, we'll have conversations again, we'll see where we go. There is a distinct need that we address for our middle and high school students that are different than our elementary students. And so, but there also is conversations around when do kids learn then that responsibility? So it's not just like, we're gonna keep these devices in school, we're gonna be more purposeful about, okay, when do we teach the students on how to take care of those devices when they take them home? When does that happen? What are the expectations? Maybe it's not, you know, and again, this is conversation we'll have, but maybe it's not a day one you get a device. Maybe it's, oh, you go and learn how to take care of the device, and then you're gonna take it home tonight and bring it in tomorrow. Hey, did you bring it in tomorrow? Well, just rebuilding our system a bit after having so many things, just we had to do it because we had to do it. So, but every step of the way, being thoughtful about what we're doing and what we expect our outcomes. So,
Well, we asked a lot of our parents, right? So for our children of that age. And so I think it's not just a notebook that goes home, it's a device. And so it's a less responsibility for parents as well. So it stays in that locker. And when they come, I just think it's a win for everybody. It's just whew, it just stays. I'm hoping that's a winner for you as well.
Yeah, I'm curious to see you know. For me, I'm curious to see how break fix is for this, how loss is related to having it back on site. Because we had loss when they were on,
Yeah,
we had shared Chromebook carts and iPad carts for decades now. There's always some loss, so I'm curious to see how that has an impact to bringing them on site.
yeah,
Of course,
But most parents hold the kids, their children accountable for, maintaining it, the care of it, and not losing it and all that for the devices.
I will say yes, most do. Right? I mean, we're always gonna talk about it is not 50%, we're talking below 50%, of our students that we have challenges with, right? And that is all a conversation within itself of how do we help our kids be better with the things that we're assigned about, because again, so many things just we rolled forward with what we had, right? And now it's trying to, okay, like, we're not gonna just reactively pull everything, like, we need to be balanced and make sure we're building systems from 19 every year. We're like, okay, well, let's look at this different. We get, last year was the first year we actually have it, so we know when a kid leaves us. Like, it's hard to even know that we're missing a device when we find 2 months, 3 months later, oh, that student is no longer here, right? And so getting us deeper embedded in the loop. Now, we know when a kid leaves, a ticket goes in there, every kid that leaves that same day or I should say, when their record in Skyward is updated, we get an email that goes into our ticket system. And then Xavier, who is our help desk, his responsibility is to check our system, see if it's been turned in, which sometimes it has. If it has not, that message goes out to the building principal and the secretary and say, this device has not been turned in. Please reach out to the family. And so at least there's more transparency, more communication around stuff. And we've been doing that, and that's been fairly good, So, and it's just keep building, building these chunks along the way to I'm sure we're being responsible with what we have, so. Which, yeah, so we're gonna keep doing what we're doing. This is actually my project for 25 months. So we're gonna keep doing what we're doing. We're also replacing MP3s to have another pool of devices, because historically MP3 students have, returned higher quality equipment. We're gonna review with, Rebecca Kratzik, who was our TOSA at IRE. We're gonna review that now that she is transitioning to, Dean of Students. We don't know what piece of her will remain as part of that, TOSA. And so we'll be looking at that over the next few months. And then really the big project for 25, 26 will be the summer of 26, starting to look at all of our staff and student device replacement.
thank you, great.
It all sounds very promising and going in a very positive direction for managing our resources and investment.
And thank you for everything you do, Joe. I mean, you're definitely, you're one of those guys that are behind the scenes that make things happen and get done. You're always at work.
Just like today.
Yeah, but the things that you do and the dedication to this, I really appreciate everything, you're. Another one, we're lucky to have you. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Now I get to hang out.
Okay, we're on to public comment. I'm assuming there's none. There's none.
So moving on to old business, it'd be, second review and approval policy 230, transition to kindergarten program. Does anybody have any question on that since the first reading? Well, I need a motion.
Oh, motion to approve policy 2230, transition to kindergarten program.
There's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
I,
Approved. Okay, next item, the whole business, second review and approval of policy and procedure 3110, qualifications of attendance and placement.
Make a motion to approve. Policy procedure 3110, qualifications of attendance and placement.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
I,
Okay, moving on to new business. First read, views at Washington University College in the high school program interlocal agreement. So Dr. Everett, if you could.
Sorry. So this is Central Washington and we are getting approval to provide multiple high school classrooms to math classes. And so we'll see other classes come on board as we go forward, but this is an agreement that's very similar to what we have with Everett and other entities for providing multiple high school. We have the classes identified for Kevin Armendale, David Brandon, and David Fay.
great.
So that is.
Next on new business, first review policy procedure 4130, Title 1, Part A, parent and family engagement.
Good evening. Okay, so we have two board policy and procedures for first reading, right? And then we have kind of a unique feature in that, in the July 2025 quarterly legal, policy and procedure, policy and legal news that WASDA publishes. They made some modifications to the classifications. So these are fairly minor. And I gave you in your board packet, I gave you the WASDA kind of article that goes through them, explains them a little bit. And so we'll go through them briefly. So the first one is they changed essential to critical. No other real changes in the definition. They just changed the name. The second one is they went to important. This one helps me a little bit. Encourage is, yeah, you can do it if you want, but important is like, hey, it's important. And the difference in the definition is they added, it's not in the definition, but in the article, they talk about audit findings. And so often you will see in some of the WASDA articles, you'll see, hey, as a result of statewide audit findings, we're making this change. And then this one again protects districts from identifiable situations that could lead to litigation. No change to discretionary. And then in the article that WASDA published, I thought it was beneficial that here's some benefits of the WASDA model policies. And the first one is, for me, one of the important one is it's sound legal guidance. And so WASDA goes through, they work with attorneys, they work with to match their policies with state and federal laws. The second one is it provides school district by removing barriers to legal compliance. The theory is if you adopt a policy, then you're going to follow what's inside of it. And if you follow what's inside of it, you'll be protected from legalities. And then the third one is its financial benefits to school districts. We have gone through the process of creating policies
since Dr. Everett's been here twice. We created a disability policy. And then we created the equity, which is part of the non-discrimination policy. Both of those policy created, as we created them, that process, that was multiple meetings, multiple staff, multiple hours, used a lot of our resources, which is great. I think they were, I stand behind the product that the committees produced. But when WASDA can publish, I think in July, they gave updates to, I think, 20 policies. That's kind of it, because that work is vetted, and so that takes the pressure off the market. This is something that I want to highlight. We have a history of taking WASDA policies, the model policy, especially if they are in the critical or essential, formerly known as essential. We have the ability to, if the board says, hey, what about, can we modify this? We have the ability to do that, but we're going to do that with the guidance of our legal team. I can remember a request from the board about changing, I think, 2 or 3 words in a policy, and that came back as that could be substantial. And we were advised by our legal not to do that. But so we do rely heavily on our legal counsel for these policies. And then the third one, which I also found, is it gives us a chance to make sure that we're updating our policies. So since that July edition came out, I've been spending time going through all of our policies, when WASDA updated them last, and when we updated them last. We're not in bad shape. We have some work to do. And so one of the things I talked to Dr. Everett about this morning was, hey, can we bring more policies? I've been trying to limit it to 3 policies. But bringing more policies to the board, just so we can update them in bigger batches. So trying to keep them, maybe shoot 5 to 7, being mindful of time, being mindful of sometimes if the policy is really big, we're just going to bring 2 or 3. If there's some minor additions, bringing multiple so we can try to go through.
I think too, if we're mindful of if we have questions to get them done off, or if we have, through email and not here, then we can get through those.
I so appreciate Steve's emails out saying, hey, if you have questions, and I really appreciate questions on the policies. It helps me understand them better, and if I'm seeking counsel on them, it helps clarify.
So to date, we've been editing policy as WASDA information comes in.
Yes, to some extent. Yes.
So how are you going to shape that? Where we're looking, what is the necessity of this? We're doing our own internal audit now, the ones that haven't been updated.
Kind of, yeah. So that day you came into my office and we spent time looking at that document. I have, as I went back, I have that document from 22, I think, and each time I've updated it. And then I go and I look for it and I have like 12 the same thing. I get confused. So now I have one master copy. But I am just going to, I've put all the, for example, WASDA in the July edition, there's 4 different policies that are specific to the board. They're in that thousands category. So I've downloaded the modified policy, and then I've clipped the WASDA article that goes with it, and that's in a folder. So at the next board meeting, there, either that one or the next one, I already have probably 4 that are come to you that are bigger. That's going to come to you, and it may be in a batch. Maybe here's the thousands that you need to update. I've gone through each of those. The big one that we have some work to do is the 6,000 series. That is the one that we have the most need to update. But so they'll be in batches. So I'm not digging around as much. I can go and go, these are coming to you now. I can tell you next time you're gonna have a student discipline one, you're gonna have a special education one. And there's one other one that's slipping my mind. So I already have 3. There may be 1 or 2 more in there that we can put it. So it'll be when that goes out on Friday, when Angie sends those out, it'll be a little bit more, there'll be more to review. But I'm hoping with that, questions can come in and then we can update these and get caught like that.
I like how you present them. It's really easy to understand, like, what's been deleted. What was there before, so I really like how it's to read it,
Thank you, I appreciate
yeah,
that.
so.
Appreciate that. Other questions on process of updating?
No, I do appreciate the plan that they're gonna come in batches
Mhm.
and hopefully under same context or theme, so that we are already in that mindset and know what we're looking at. That would be helpful, so we're not.
So we're not
Three
three different
different.
classifications or categories.
That sounds great.
Yeah, I think last time we went through the fine tooth comb was 2014, so it's been 10 years.
Yep, and that is the 2013-14. Those are our. Anything before that, I know it's updated, and I think one board member. It was presented to all, but I think one board member took that on. And that board member, I believe, had a passion for the policy and procedures. But that was a lot of, that was, because they were the 2000s batch.
Yeah.
I remember her and Tom having conversations about those, so. So we're doing okay.
I think as long as we stay on top of everything that's coming through, at least we're in compliance,
Mhm.
we're not out of compliance.
We're not out of-
But we're always continuing improvement. I reflect that.
Appreciate that.
And we used to have more, but we dialed it back with preservation, so
Yeah.
this is just some adjusting and.
And then if something comes up from WASA that needs to be changed, we just stick it in the mix to be addressed immediately. Okay.
Especially if it's critical or essential.
Yeah.
I try to put them in pretty fast. If it's kind of the discretionary, then they need to do better.
We're good. We just wanted to clarify, we're in compliance, we're just doing best practices. You got it. Okay.
All right, so our first one tonight is Title I. This is it's an update to an existing policy, but WASDA created a brand new procedure to go along with it. And so I worked with Adrian, Director of Teaching and Learning, and I worked with our two Title I principals on, I created if you look at the procedure, the red in there is what we as a district are gonna do. So that red is unique to us. And so I worked with our principals and Director of Teaching and Learning on, hey, does this make sense? Are we doing it? Or is this something that we're gonna need to do? And that procedure is broken up into, the first portion of that procedure is broken up by district. I think part B or part 2 is broken up by school. We did both of them. But we wanted to be aligned and we wanted a plan to go forward, so. This is a critical / essential policy, and it's a federal, Title I is a federal program. Title I comes with federal funding. And it basically just outlines the expectations for parent engagement. These expectations have been there, being a Title I school. What the procedure does is it really kind of solidifies it, it codifies it, and it calls it out. So, questions on this one? And it really highlights the parent involvement.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
so this looks new to me, this advisory forward, I really like that.
Gets people involved. Good.
Okay, and then, again, this is the first reading, so as other questions come through, please send them to me to email. So that is the first one.
Next one, first review policy and procedure 6801, capital assets, debt sensitive assets.
So this is again an update to an existing policy. If you look at that policy and procedure, the only thing they did is they aligned the dollar amount to match the changes in the uniform guidance, which I had to look up uniform guidance. And it takes me to a link, which is the Code of Federal Regulations. And it lists, what is defined as equipment, other capital expenditures. So this is based on a change in the federal guidance. And then where this also comes in is the theft and sensitive items. So that could be the computers. And so all of our computers are cataloged, they're tagged. So this is both of those. This was sent to Daniel, sent to Joe, and sent to Jay. They all agree with what's in. So again, first reading, as you read through it, if you have questions. Please send them.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, next up, for new business, the board is being asked to perform the first review and a motion to approve the Boys and Girls Club 21st BCLC services memorandum of understanding as detailed in the attachment provided.
So you've already seen and approved the data sharing agreement. This is for the 21st Century Grant. This is also, it's an application. We don't have guarantee that we're gonna get the grant. We don't have guarantee there's gonna be funding for it. So this year's 21st Century Grant funds were frozen with the other title funds about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And were just released, so that's promising. But there's, that's the reason we actually are doing, it needs to be applied for on Friday. So we first can move tonight, please. It just outlines what we're doing. I did talk to Heather today. This application represents $410,000+ that will come to Meridian School District in the form of employees for them to support 170 of our students at IRA and middle school through after school programming. So it's going to be fantastic for our district to land in. This is for this year only. It's something that can be renewed every year.
So we knew not necessarily reapplied.
Correct.
And this
You start putting people in place.
Sorry, this won't take away from MYAA in any way, right? This is just after school.
There's an academic and social aspect.
Okay.
There's also some career exploration and everything.
Okay.
That's
Maybe
not organized
some
sports
time
or anything like that.
we'll do that, but not yet.
Okay, quick or discussion, we'll need a motion, take action on this.
We'll do a first and a second immediately.
Yes, because they have the deadline.
So we'll need a motion to approve the first and a second. How do you do that?
So we need a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding with Boys and Girls Club.
I'll make a motion to approve the MOU for the Boys and Girls Club. Is that all we need right now?
Second. If they move to second, is there any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Right. Great, okay. Finance report. Dan, are you still commuting from Spokane?
Yep.
Good lord. You do some like airline road mile. It's all good. Huh? It's all good. My cousin might used to like haul cabinets to Spokane. I kind of think you
We need
better
to
double
keep, yeah,
gear.
I was gonna say, we need to keep a side gig in the middle,
Be $1,200 to take a load. That could 2,000 picker.
or like long haul, like, not gravel, but hay or something.
Right, yeah, as long as people need me to bring stuff up.
I'm thinking like.
Yeah, he's thinking, he's like, I don't know about that.
It's all yours.
All right, finance report, let's see what's first. Okay, so this is the June enrollment compared to May. And really looking at the core program and MP3, those reductions, 3 in the core program and 2 in MP3, that's pretty good going from May to June. We always expect some loss at the end of the year. Enrollment, one thing that stuck out to me was the special ed enrollment, and it went up by 12 from May to June. And so I reached out to Aaron to kind of first say, okay, is this legit? And this is what it is, and basically, I'm gonna kind of read from my notes here. he says basically three reasons, early childhood transition, so birth to transition back to pre-K, so they have more birthdays at the end of the year. That added to the count. He said the second one was probably the most significant, this is late referrals. And, that comes from families and providers. Like, where, many of those referrals were completed in the last month of the school year. This year, and then he said finally there were some transfers, engagements, or there's some students that maybe would have been exited and needed to come back on in 1 year. So, that is kind of a large number, but it's a real number. Looking at June compared to the budget, we'll just jump back to special ed. So special ed was up 25 overall. And actually, it was interesting because we started the year below and then it kind of progressively going up. And then, you're looking at this, it looks like more because we had 12, or just that final month, but still 25 over is quite a bit. And then the core program was up 29, and then MP3 was down 2. So we stabilized pretty good around 215 for MP3. It's been typically we budget at 215 because it comes in right about that number. It has been for party on the last 5 years. So overall, in total, we're up. For again, MP3 and more 27. And this really hard document to see is the budget status report. And so this I am looking at both May and June this month. And it's I put May on hold last month because we adopted the budget. These are very crazy and also it's already presented for quite a bit of time. So we'll go over May and June. The budget status report, the first page is the general fund, and that is just a lesser detailed budget projection report than on the spreadsheet. May didn't have anything that stuck out to me as unusual or anything that needed to be explained or have further detail on. There were a couple of things in June now. Not break this thing for Joe. Okay, so now we're in June here. So in the debt service fund, on June 1st, we paid our interest only payment for 2007, the 2010 bonds, and that was $159,000. We have a principal and interest payment on December 1st, so that'll be our next payment. But in June, in the summertime, we pay just interest. For the transportation vehicle fund, we also just had a bus delivered in June, and that was $145,000. And we're expecting a couple more buses coming soon as well.
Can I ask a question about the buses?
Yeah.
When we retire a bus, we retire the bus number and then does the bus get its retired bus number? How's that work?
Do we think a banner?
Or, yeah, kinda, or like, does it, if bus number 3 goes out, does it get that bus number?
I think she does remember the, do you know?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah,
We'll
I
find
guess
out.
that'd be a question for Michelle, but
Yeah,
maybe no?
No, I had a clarifying question. We had a meeting a week ago. We had a retreat, and one of the questions where we all sign off, where we don't, we don't take a salary being board members. I remember you shared many years ago, but it was like $92 or something like that. But then one of the things we brought up is like the money that we don't receive as
Oh,
board
yeah.
director members, does that money go to the ASP fund?
no,
I thought it, when Tim was here, because first Tim was here, he explained how it worked. And then you had to like, oh yeah, by the way, now you're a board member, you can only make $200 a month. And then, and as we talked about that, but I thought there was like, instead of the funds just like, we just don't receive anyway, the money did go somewhere. And I thought it was, whatever the board would receive as a compensation
Yeah.
would go to the ASB. That's not the case.
No, I'm not really recalling anything about that conversation either, so.
That might have been just with Tim then.
Yeah, the general fund does support the ASB in a number of ways, so we got rid of fees in ASB cards and also this got ASB cards. And we stock it fees for classrooms and whatnot. Now, each school has an allotment that they basically, they have the ASB invoice the general fund. And we pay, try to check the general fund to support ASB, so there's support coming there. But it's not directly tied to how much you guys can get paid. Also, we pay for, athletic officials. So the ASB pays for that, and they invoice their general fund, that's a check to ASB. So there's some support there, and it is legal for, the general fund to support the ASB for communicating that we want to, basically, it's all set, but to support it.
Basically, any kind of compensation we're waiving, it just remains in the general fund.
Right, right.
I didn't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I wasn't putting words in your mouth, I just, that was I think the conversation I had with Tim, it was like, well, I spoke to Daniel. And I hope this is a deal breaker, but you know, there's rules, if you're gonna be a board member, there's a rule.
yeah, there's a limit to how much the district will pay you, even if it's for other services. Yeah, there's RCW.
And I don't do it for the money, it was like, in December, great, but you know, the hospitality room is good enough, that's good there. Yeah.
For popcorn,
Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you for your services. Definitely appreciate it, guys. May and June, on the budget projection report, the general fund. Just, I'm gonna kind of bounce back and forth between months, see to make sense. As I go through that, the revenues, for both May and June, the allocation that we get for our apportionment is lower, 5 and 6%. So it is the low, both of those months are lower revenue months. It's kind of set up because the state knows that we get most of our tax revenues from. So it's kind of like a cash flow scooping out. We do also get some tax revenues trickling in May. We got $464,000 in able to prime the rate payments. I don't know if you all recall this, but in this last legislative session, there was to address the MSOC shortfall, the legislatures offered at $50 per student. And so that payment actually came through this fiscal year. We got that payment in June. That was $80,000.
when people pay late on their taxes, how do we benefit from the interest?
I don't think we do. I think that goes through now.
It only goes to the county. I was wondering about that.
Well, we do, eventually we will get all of our tax revenues, it's either through foreclosure or starts collecting. One more thing to point out in the revenue side, we did get our invoicing payments. So this is the invoicing throughout the years and for our care experience that we have. We got a payment $40,000 for the year nursing grant. We had $34,000 to collect on that. Typically we'll invoice once payroll hits in August. We'll for these types of grants. We got $23,000 per shelter connections that was paid for a certificated teacher. And then $22,000 for a walking health grant. That's a grant that we said we have come up on. We're still $52,000 would be my round one. Questions on the revenues? On the expense side of things, salaries were. Actually, salaries and accounts payable were right about where I would expect them to be. June is a bit higher on the salary amounts, and that's usually because everybody's getting in those last minute time sheets. Yeah, so you have some more extra time that'll flow through in June. For accounts payable, in May, it was $469,000, in June, it was $292,000. Again, those kind of check out as well, most of, they just have increased activity in June, as everybody's spending out the budgets. There's a May 15th purchase order deadline, it's at the district level or to departments and schools have all the purchase orders submitted to the district by May 15th, and then they usually back that up about 2 weeks. Our teachers and the various department heads, whatever, into the secretary, so they can kind of process that. And then they can do a final sweep and say, okay, we have $5,000 left, or the other things that now, and kind of do one final order to get that in for kids.
Is that for the year end?
Yes. Yeah. And then shortly after that, we open up the next school year and start spending money for the next year. So it's easiest because we have one of our vendors is ACBA. They work with the school, so they're used to it. So you can put an order in and say, don't deliver this at all. Go to see the next budget. So on accounts payable, I like to kind of point out the things that stood out to me as being like larger ticket items. There's the about $21,000 a month for special education residential placement program. So I believe I was looking at the encumbrances, and I think we have one more thing about that come through, but there's about 21,000 both May and June for that vendor. We paid our winter running start in May, that was $198,000. And then in both May and June, we made the payments to the Washington State Auditor's Office, $16,500 in May, and $12,500 in June. The total cost of the audit was budgeted $58,000. So this is our larger audit, where they do the accountability audit as well. We're at every other year, it's probably around that $55,000 to $60,000 range, and then on the off year, well, it's just our financial and civil audit, which is our federal programs. It's about $47,000. This was the big one. Any questions on the expense side of things?
No, can I digress on something though? And I apologize for this. I wanted to ask a question a long time ago. In my mind.
Is this some budget stuff or is it something?
It's just about, kind of.
Okay.
You can tell me if I'm incorrect, and then you can scold me. It's about wording, it's about funding for, I'll try and make it about budget. It is, it's about budget, it's about, we're talking about running start, budget to BTC. And the difference between vocational and non-vocational. So there's just two different amounts that are paid. So I was just wondering about what makes it vocational and non-vocational.
I don't know for sure. I know that almost all of it ends up being vocational, or you'll have like maybe 2 or 3% ends up being non-vocational. I would guess, I would say classes that they're taking, but
Yeah, they're heading to, it's for a vocational trade, or so oftentimes those programs are more expensive to run, and so you have higher levels. You see that, that's a higher vocational is higher
I
end.
assume most of it goes towards that. Thanks.
yeah, most of it ends up being vocational. So on this budget projection report, I always like to point out the budget percentage versus the actual, and we're just tracking a little bit under that. Students we have a pretty tight budget. probably it'll be that way again next year as well. You know, we'll be able to kind of save a little bit, but essentially it's just saying that we're running for. Yeah, we'll continue to see that, but also it's a very good indicator, if you ever see that number going up above. The actual number is going above the budget number, we kind of know about it, try and get close to it, see. Okay, why is it doing that, what do we need to do for the rest of the year, kind of get that back up, so we stay within our. Total budget. Appropriations. I do want to give an audit update. The audit is complete. They're gonna send out an email on Friday inviting board members, management to an exit meeting. That exit meeting is it looks like it's gonna be August 6th at noon. Typically it's nice to have 1 or 2 board members. If we have more interest in having more than 2. Typically I'll do like 2 back-to-back meetings. Probably OPMA rules. The audit went really smooth. They were great to work with. There weren't a whole lot of recommendations. There was kind of a little bit of like a surprise last minute finding where oftentimes it ends up when you get like finding versus not finding. It can kind of just depend on what the issue is and what the state laws are around it. In this one, there's a few sessions ago, there was a requirement put in place in the legislature that put an RCW that said before you go out to the voters to approve a levy, have to fill out we have to fill out space the application. It's yeah, it's a enrichment. So it's not what it was. So you have to complete this. It's basically like an Excel form. And it marries your budget in the various categories, you know, how much are you spending? Each of the categories, you complete this form, and you send it to OSPI. 20 minutes later, they send it back to this group. So, but there's this requirement, they have to do that, complete that form before you go out to the voters, to approve the levy. And this is something that just wasn't on my radar. I did it like right, you know, a session when we went out for a levy 4 years prior, it had just been fresh in my mind. I was like, okay, then will this go around? And I just think, so I didn't do that. And then when the auditors asked about it, I said, okay, then we forgot to do this. Well, like, all right, just submit it to OSPI. So then submit to OSPI, 15 minutes later, they sent the approval. And then at the end of the audit, when they were working through their final review, they have they have the Bellingham team, those people that did mostly work the auditors. Then they have a school team that's in Olympia, and they'll review the exceptions and stuff. And when they were doing that, they're like, okay, here's your finding. They sent back the finding, and so the auditors were like, hey, we didn't really realize this was as big a deal as it is. We haven't seen this before. I haven't seen this in our office before. Sorry, but I guess I'm fine. So anyway, we have finding on that, and along with that finding, we have to do within 30 days after the close of the audit, once they issue the audit report, you have to do brains space and words right now. Good hearing? Yeah, you have to do a public hearing. Sorry, you have to do a public hearing, so we'll do a public hearing, just basically say, this is what happened. Um, so anyway, they'll discuss it more, you know. So. We also have, management letter. Internet, so there's three levels of reporting, there's finding, which is the most significant, and there's a management letter. Usually management letters come when they've made a recommendation to you. Prior audit and then escalate it to a management letter. And then when they have what's called an excellent recommendation, that's more like housekeeping items. So this management letter, that one is in regards to supplemental contracts. So like this is like coaches or advisors. So there's a state law, and the state law says that you have to issue supplemental contracts annually. And within that supplemental contract, you have to set out what the expectations of job duties are going to be for that staff member. We weren't doing that, and I think this may be our third audit where we weren't doing that. We reached out to our attorney, and we were getting guidance that said basically eBay, something like that. We heard him speak more to that, and well, SAO has acquired with the Attorney General's office and their holding statements that this is non-compliance with that RCW. If you list, issue those contracts annually, and then you gotta specify what the job duties are. I think there's, I think there is some good in this that is probably something that we can do as far as really specifying what those job duties are. And how they meet enrichment criteria, how they're above and beyond just the base contract of K-12 basic education. So, and then there's just a couple of housing items that they might speak to it for that. But all in all, it was actually a very smooth audit. I felt so, but just a couple of issues that made up. That's what you go for it.
Was there any for the finding and a management letter?
Yeah.
And we know next steps. Do any of those action items also put some kind of any kind of financial liability?
No, there isn't really any impact besides having to do that public hearing. Yeah.
We will put some controls in, right? We'll create a
Yeah.
list for doing limits, right?
Yeah, so we're gonna beef up controls around that. Have a nice checklist that one of those steps will lead to ensure that is significant expense upon those given.
Even though we're talking about hearing, it actually is part of the ruling, set to share with the share again, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Daniel.
that's always nice. Thank you, Dan.
Nicely done.
Thank you so much.
Next up, we have the superintendent's report, Dr. Dana.
Okay. It hasn't, we saw you last week. It hasn't been a whole lot, but did spend some time in DC. Part of the
We know
wash.
that.
No.
Wow.
I got back in the.
He drove.
But there are 6 superintendents in Washington that make up the Washington delegation, DC, and we had spent a day with AASA, which is National Superintendents Association, and they have a legislative group, and it's all around a legislative advocacy conference. And we went to advocate for 3 specific things. So, as you know, the federal government froze Department of Ed funding for Title I, different aspects of Title I. They also are recommending some cuts to next year's fiscal year 2026 title funds. Where it referred to as the skinny budget. So we wanted to say, please make sure that those actually get funded. And then the other one is special education. You've heard us talk about special education is one of the big three for Washington State. When special education came in the form of IDEA legislation, so Individual with Disabilities Act, the federal government said, hey, we have an obligation, we will provide 40% to the states, and the states will need to pay 60%. At its height, the federal government provided 18%, and lately we've only provided 10%. So when we talk about funding from the state for special ed, we also should recognize we're not getting funded to the degree that the federal government said they were going to in IDEA as well. So we also have to look for that. So there are the districts. And so in a unified and nonpartisan effort, we met with 10 of our 12. We have 2 Republican representatives, and we met with one of them. And then basically had this conversation. Actually, we didn't meet with any of them. We met with their staffers because they were released. The house went home, so they weren't there when we were there. And you can't know that when they're doing conference planning year before. So we did meet, and a lot of times their staffers are the ones that actually get work done. So not bad, but good meetings and good conversations. So again, just advocating to make sure that all our students have a funding that they need so that get the service.
Were those one-on-one meetings?
Yeah.
One-on-one?
Yeah.
Didn't you mention that the funding for Title I already got unfroze? Some of it?
Some of it did, so 21st century funding did, and then migrant Title I parts.
Yeah.
Yep. Also released, so we have summer school that we do for our students, coordination and things like that. So I wasn't sure whether the carry funds would allow us to pay for that, so good. But that's all funding that was for the fiscal year 2025. That's funding that's already been approved by Congress. Still, there's still some more of it that's frozen. But we want it, right? And the sentiment you see is it's gonna come to us,
Yeah.
but it's a matter of when. So the difficulty and what we explain to them is as superintendents, when we do all of our budgeting, we start in January or February. And we have to, by state law, commit to contracts in our budget amount May 15th. And that's why that's when we talk about reduction in force, it's who can we carry those contracts forward with? And so when we make a budget that depends on those Title I dollars,
Right. Right, okay.
where it comes from. Yeah, so you may have seen in Cascading Daily News, the impact of different districts. I don't know if you've seen that article, but, boy, the Connor hit really hard. Hit really hard, so you see a lot of article. So, in any case, and I goofed, this should actually say WASDA on the screen, but I carried it over, so I see I carried the slide over, change the title. So, just a reminder, it is November 20th and 22nd. Angie has everybody registered and hotels and all of that, so. Looking forward to that, that's good. And then again, the Public Education Promise, this American Dream in Action, ASA, this is their program moving forward. It has 5 principles. The Public Education Promise is the commitment to providing every child in every community with a highly effective education in comparison to college, career, and real life in the real world. So this is where they are looking to make sure that we talk about education for all students. It is something that everybody can agree to. So the 5 principles: prioritize student-centered learning. Principle 2, the new basics, real skills for real life. Principle 3, attract, hire, retain, and reward the best people. Principle 4, build highly engaged family, community, and business partnerships. Principle 5, measure what matters. So, we talked about how some of the, a neighbor test actually asked a question about asking the students about phone booths. How many students do them with their phone booths? So, what are we looking, what are we measuring, right? So.
Well, measure what matters.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah, so,
What matters.
and this fits really well when we talk about what we're doing for early childhood as well as skill center, right? And trying to make sure we have pathways in those protocols. And as you know, when we spoke last week in the retreat, we are looking at having, a list of things, and actually Lisa and I have prepared a list for you. I'll bring it to the next board meeting. But some things that, you know, we can get each of the buildings with all board members and then some ongoing things as well. And then, we also talked about changing our board meeting start times. And so in September, we'll start at 5 p.m. at 6. I know. Grace. Getting tickles. And then the other thing we talked about is shifting our board meetings to several locations, so look at school buildings across the district. I need to meet with Jay and just find out the logistics of that. That may not be practical, just as we talked about, it sounded good, but I also want to remind everybody that, we have lesser maintenance staff, we have lesser custodial staff, we're challenged to get things done in budget situation that we're in. I don't want to create more difficulty, so.
You don't need
And I thought you would feel that way. So anyway, I'm gonna have that conversation. So we may still stay here. We'll see. Good thing. I have, so our next board meeting is on the 13th. And then unfortunately, it's going to be August 28th. We're under with Labor Day, September 1st, and then we'll have September 5th, or excuse me, September 10th, will be at 5 p.m. And there's a no-cost conference put on by the Cook Center in Peninsula, and actually, Preston Barr is one of the superintendents that you can see. A Leadership in Neuroscience Summit. This is, it's a summit to discuss leadership, human development, happiness, employee retention. So there are some things that I am hopeful for. Strategies. So that's September.
Should we assume that we should be at the first day of school for the board members at some capacity at one of the buildings?
The one I would recommend is the district kickoff
With district kickoff?
on the 27th. So. that
Oh,
is-
27.
So I'll be sending you
Oh, okay.
information on that. So that's in the morning. So.
August, Wednesday?
Right.
Okay. Oh, because we don't have a board. We don't have a board meeting.
Okay, so obviously our student board representatives are not here. Okay, is there any information from our board director?
Fun things happening, and it's, with the boosters at the Northwest Washington Fair. With this year's senior class going to Disney. So be on the lookout when they're up there, looking at the cows, the kids are gonna be wiping tables and earning money. And then secondly, our cheer team did exceptionally well at camp. And we had 4 girls, I think it was, qualify as All-American.
Wow.
My daughter being one of them, and they were invited to perform at Pearl Harbor in the Pearl Harbor Day Parade in Hawaii.
Wow.
So
What is that gonna be?
on Pearl Harbor Day,
Oh.
December, yeah, at the monument.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah,
Pretty cool.
so, right now I know that we have 2 of the girls confirmed to go. So,
That's really great.
yeah, we're really excited.
It sounds like you got a good vacation.
Yeah, they keep it pretty jam-packed with the girls, practicing things like that.
If you've never been to Pearl Harbor on December 7th day, it's pretty cool. I like things that they reenact.
Give me the chill, like,
I'm
And it
excited for the
is,
girls. to
Cause they have like
experience
old
that.
zeros, and I mean, it's the real deal.
So when she's like, I'm like, yep, we're in, that's a once in a lifetime.
Awesome.
Yeah, as a whole, they did really, really well.
no, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, then we got board signature, of official documents, and our meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ready?
No. Lunch twice.